Before we plunge into the depths of a nightmare, into a story so unsettling it will make you question the very fabric of reality, a tale of terror that gripped a nation and haunted the dreams of millions, I have a small, yet significant, request. If you're drawn to narratives that explore the chilling unknown, that peel back the veneer of normalcy to reveal the darkness beneath, and that promise to leave an indelible mark on your imagination, then please, take a moment. Consider subscribing to our channel, following, or giving this story a like. Your support is the fuel that allows us to bring these complex, gripping, and often terrifying sagas to life, pushing the boundaries of what a story can be. Now, if you're ready to dim the lights, silence the world around you, and brace yourself for a journey into the heart of fear, then prepare. This is the story of the Harlequin of Horror. The quaint, picturesque town of Havenwood, nestled amidst the rolling hills and dense forests of rural Vermont, was, for generations, a bastion of tranquility. Its cobblestone streets, Victorian architecture, and community spirit were the very embodiment of small-town American charm. Children played freely in sun-dappled parks, neighbors chatted over picket fences, and the only crime reported was the occasional stolen garden gnome. That was until the summer of 2023, when an unspeakable horror descended, painting the town in shades of fear and crimson, forever shattering its idyllic facade. It began subtly with whispers. The first incident involved a series of disturbing anonymous calls to the local police department, guttural, distorted laughter, followed by nursery rhymes sung in a chilling, off-key baritone. Sheriff Brody Miller, a man whose easygoing demeanor was as much a part of Havenwood as its covered bridges, initially dismissed them as a prank, perhaps a disgruntled teenager. His deputies, too, chuckled nervously, attributing it to the eerie quiet that sometimes bred mischief in secluded communities. They were wrong, terribly, horribly wrong. The first disappearance struck a week later. 8-year-old Lily Peterson, a bright-eyed girl with an infectious giggle, vanished from the town's annual summer fair. Her parents, frantic with worry, described her last moments as she excitedly pointed towards the fairground's entrance, captivated by a balloon vendor. Oddly, no one remembered seeing a balloon vendor. Surveillance footage from a nearby bakery, grainy and distant, showed only a brief, shadowy figure, tall and oddly proportioned, disappearing with what might have been a child in tow, just beyond the reach of the camera's clear focus. The only clue left behind was a single, brightly colored balloon, twisted into the shape of a dog, lying deflated near where Lily was last seen. Its vibrant hues now seemed mockingly sinister against the dull pavement. Panic, a sensation alien to Havenwood, began to ripple through the community. A massive search effort was launched, involving every able-bodied resident, state troopers, and volunteer groups from neighboring towns. They combed the forests, dragged the riverbeds, and plastered missing posters on every lamppost, each adorned with Lily's hopeful, innocent smile. Days turned into a week, then 2. The laughter on the anonymous calls grew more frequent, the nursery rhymes more sinister. Sheriff Miller felt a cold dread settle deep in his bones. This wasn't just a missing child. This felt different, malevolent. The second victim was Sarah Jenkins, a 23-year-old barista at the local coffee shop. She was known for her kindness, her love of old horror movies, and her vibrant red hair. Sarah was last seen walking home late one evening after her shift, a routine she had followed for years. Her apartment, located above the town's general store, was found unlocked the next morning by her worried roommate. There were no signs of forced entry, no struggle, only a single unsettling item left on her pillow. A grotesque, crudely drawn caricature of a smiling clown, sketched in what looked disturbingly like dried blood. Forensic analysis later confirmed it was indeed human blood, not Sarah's. The sheer audacity, the chilling precision, sent a wave of horror through Miller's department. The calls, the balloon, the drawing a pattern was emerging, one too terrifying to fully grasp. With 2 disappearances and the disturbing clues, Havenwood's quiet isolation was shattered. News vans, reporters, and true crime podcasters descended upon the town, turning its quaint charm into a macabre backdrop for a national tragedy. The story of the Havenwood Clown, or the Giggling Phantom, began to dominate headlines across America. People locked their doors, children were kept indoors, and the once bustling town square became a desolate echo of its former self. Fear, raw and visceral, choked the very air. FBI Special Agent Anya Sharma was assigned to the case. A sharp, no-nonsense profiler with a reputation for dissecting the most twisted criminal minds, Sharma arrived in Havenwood with an air of professional detachment that belied the horror she felt internally. She was instantly struck by the town's palpable fear, a collective anxiety that hummed like a low-frequency current. Her initial meeting with Sheriff Miller was tense. Miller, overwhelmed and out of his depth, was skeptical of the FBI's psychological approach. "We need boots on the ground, Agent, not theories about childhood trauma," he grumbled, gesturing to a wall covered in maps and crime scene photos. Sharma, unperturbed, pointed to the clown drawing. "This isn't a random act, Sheriff. This is communication, a theatrical display. This killer wants to be seen, to be understood, to incite fear. And he's enjoying it." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the grim faces of the task force assembled in the cramped station. "He's an organized, highly intelligent predator. He stalks his victims, plans his attacks meticulously, and leaves specific signatures. The clown imagery isn't just a disguise. It's an extension of his identity, a twisted persona through which he expresses his pathology." The profiler delved into the minutiae, the specific type of balloon, the particular shade of blood used in the drawing, the chilling precision of the phone calls. She posited that the killer likely had a deep-seated resentment, a desire for attention, or a perverse need to disrupt order and purity. Havenwood, with its innocent facade, was the perfect stage for his macabre performance. Sharma requested a full analysis of the blood used in the drawing, hoping for a DNA match, or at least a blood type that could lead them somewhere. The results, when they came back, were baffling. The blood was human, but it contained traces of a rare, synthetic polymer often used in specific industrial paints, not commonly found in human biology. It suggested the blood had been treated, altered, or perhaps mixed with something else. It was another layer of the killer's macabre artistry, another taunt. As the investigation intensified, a new development plunged Havenwood into even deeper despair. A package arrived at the local newspaper, wrapped in colorful, clown-themed paper. Inside, amidst a shower of confetti, was a single, meticulously crafted puppet. It was a miniature replica of a young girl, complete with Lily Peterson's signature red ribbon in her hair. Attached was a note, scrawled in whimsical, childlike handwriting, yet terrifying in its message. "The show must go on. Curtain call soon." The puppet, a chilling embodiment of Lily, was a direct taunt, a psychological weapon. It confirmed the worst. Lily was gone, and the killer was reveling in their terror. The image of the puppet, broadcast across every news channel, sent a collective shiver down the spine of America. The Havenwood Clown was no longer a local horror. He was a national nightmare, a grinning harbinger of chaos whose next act was awaited with bated breath and profound dread. Sheriff Miller and Agent Sharma knew they were dealing with something far beyond their experience. A monster wearing a painted smile, whose stage was the quiet heart of America. The curtain had just risen on his grand, terrifying spectacle. The arrival of the puppet, a macabre effigy of Lily Peterson, had irrevocably altered the landscape of the investigation and the psyche of Havenwood. The initial shock gave way to a chilling realization. The Harlequin of horror, as the national media now sensationalized him, was not just a murderer. He was a storyteller, a twisted artist using human lives as his medium and the town's fear as his canvas. The FBI, now fully committed, established a larger task force, pouring resources into the small Vermont town. But the sheer meticulousness and the psychological games played by the killer kept them at bay. Agent Sharma, now fully entrenched in Havenwood, found herself consumed by the case. Her apartment in a hastily rented, quiet B&B felt less like a temporary home and more like a war room. She spent sleepless nights poring over every detail, Every anonymous call, every faint trace. The synthetic polymer in the blood sample continued to baffle forensics. It was a highly specialized additive, suggesting the killer had access to industrial chemical processes or was exceptionally adept at mimicking them. This was no ordinary psychopath. This was a calculating genius with a flair for the macabre. The Harlequin of horror's next act was a chilling escalation. It didn't involve another disappearance, but rather a grotesque public display. One crisp autumn morning, the town awoke to find the historic town square transformed into a macabre carnival. Streamers of black and red hung from lampposts, deflated balloons in unsettling shapes littered the cobblestones, and a life-sized mannequin, dressed in Lily Peterson's clothes and wearing a crudely painted clown mask, sat on the park bench. In its lap lay a single red rose, and pinned to its chest was a note, scrawled in the same whimsical, terrifying hand. Intermission. Next show at the Old Mill. Don't be late. The Old Mill, a dilapidated, abandoned textile factory on the outskirts of Havenwood, had long been a local legend, rumored to be haunted. Now it was destined to be the stage for the killer's next, horrific performance. Sheriff Miller, his face etched with exhaustion and dread, reluctantly followed Sharma's lead. He's inviting us, Agent. Taunting us. Precisely, Sharma replied, her jaw tight. He wants an audience. He wants to control the narrative. We go, but we go on our terms. A meticulously planned raid was executed on the Old Mill. SWAT teams, K-9 units, and forensic specialists swarmed the area. The mill was a labyrinth of rusting machinery, dark corridors, and dusty, forgotten rooms. The air was thick with the scent of decay and a faint, sweet smell that made the hairs on Sharma's neck stand up. They found nothing. No killer, no victim, no obvious booby traps. It was an elaborate, terrifying diversion. As the main force searched the mill, a small, isolated cabin deep in the surrounding forest, known to be a local hiking spot, was discovered. Inside, they found the third victim, Michael Thorne, a reclusive local artist known for his unsettling, often grotesque sculptures. He had been tied to a chair, his eyes wide with terror, and his face painted with a garish, permanent clown smile, meticulously carved into his skin. His throat had been slit, echoing the method used on Sarah Jenkins, and his blood had been used to paint the cabin walls with a swirling, abstract mural of laughing, demonic faces. This piece was dubbed the Grand Guignol of Gore. The horror of Thorne's death was compounded by a discovery near his body, a small, intricately carved wooden puppet. This one, unlike Lily's effigy, was of a man with a tortured expression, wearing an artist's smock. It was another direct taunt, a personalized message from the killer. The sheer brutality, the artistic precision, and the taunting messages confirmed the killer's escalating depravity. He was not just killing. He was creating a terrifying, macabre performance art, forcing the town, and indeed the nation, to witness his masterpiece. The public outcry was immense. The Harlequin of horror became a household name, synonymous with unspeakable terror. Children had nightmares. Adults checked their locks multiple times a night, and the national conversation became dominated by fear, speculation, and outrage. Profilers on every news channel debated the killer's psychology, suggesting everything from a deep-seated childhood trauma involving clowns to a nihilistic desire to expose the fragility of human existence. Conspiracy theories blossomed online, linking the clown to ancient cults or government experiments. Agent Sharma, however, focused on the details. The sweet smell at the mill, the synthetic polymer in the blood, the specific types of wood used for the puppets, and now, the meticulously carved smile. The killer was highly skilled, resourceful, and intelligent. He likely had a background in art, chemistry, and possibly even theatrical design. The selection of victims, too, was becoming clearer. Lily, the symbol of innocence. Sarah, the vibrant youth. And now Michael, the artist. Each represented a different aspect of life or perception, systematically corrupted by the clown. A critical breakthrough came from the blood analysis. The synthetic polymer, after painstaking research, was identified as a component in a highly specialized, non-toxic, and incredibly durable paint used primarily in amusement park animatronics and movie prop construction. This was a significant lead. It suggested the killer either worked in such an industry or had intimate knowledge of its materials. This also explained the sweet smell. It was likely a masking agent used in the paint, designed to make it more palatable for close-up work. Sharma and Miller, now operating with a grim synchronicity, expanded their search to include anyone with a background in animatronics, special effects, or prop design who had lived in or had ties to Havenwood. The list was extensive yet manageable. They also re-examined the initial anonymous calls. The distorted laughter, the off-key nursery rhymes, they weren't just random sounds. A new voice analysis revealed a subtle, almost imperceptible pattern in the distortion, suggesting a specific voice modulator, possibly a custom-built one. As they narrowed their suspect pool, a fourth victim emerged, not in Havenwood, but 200 miles away in a bustling Boston suburb, a stark departure from the killer's previous isolated stage. This time, the victim was Dr. Evelyn Reed, a renowned behavioral psychologist who had been a frequent guest on national news channels, offering extensive profiles of the Harlequin of Horror. Her body was found in her meticulously organized study, her throat slit, her blood used to paint a chilling self-portrait on her wall. A wide-eyed, terrified woman with tears of blood, her mouth sewn shut. The title, emblazoned above it in crimson, was The Silent Oracle. On her desk, a small, intricately carved wooden puppet of a psychologist sat, its mouth similarly stitched closed. The audacity of the Boston killing sent shockwaves through the nation, proving the Harlequin of Horror was not confined to Havenwood, and that he was actively targeting those who dared to analyze him. It was a direct, chilling message to the authorities and the public. He was watching, he was listening, and he was always one step ahead. Agent Sharma felt a cold dread, a terrifying respect for the killer's strategic genius. He had just turned her own profession into a weapon against her. The game had escalated, and the stakes were now impossibly high. The Carnival of Chaos was no longer a local sideshow. It was a national tour, and the next performance promised to be the most terrifying yet. The murder of Dr. Evelyn Reed in Boston was not just another killing. It was a declaration of war. The Harlequin of Horror had expanded his stage, demonstrating a terrifying reach and an uncanny ability to strike at the very heart of the investigation. The Silent Oracle was a direct, contemptuous message to Agent Sharma and her team. Their analysis, their profiles, their theories, they were all just part of his grand performance, and those who dared to interpret him would be silenced. The nation was gripped by a collective paralysis, watching in horror as a single, monstrous figure seemed to unravel the fabric of public safety. Agent Sharma, reeling from the personal nature of Reed's murder, felt a cold fury ignite within her. This wasn't just a case anymore. It was a deeply personal chess match, and the killer had just moved a queen. Sheriff Miller, though shaken, found a new resolve, understanding that this monster threatened everything they held dear. The clues, however, were slowly coalescing, pointing to a single terrifying truth. The custom voice modulator, the specialized animatronics paint, the meticulous puppet carving, the theatrical flair, and the profound resentment towards those who judged or analyzed, all these threads began to weave a portrait, not just of a clown, but of a specific kind of artist. An artist scorned, brilliant but twisted, with a deep understanding of human psychology and a macabre sense of humor. The expanded suspect list, now focusing on individuals with ties to both Havenwood and the animatronics/prop industry, began to shrink. One name, however, rose to the surface with chilling consistency: Arthur Finch. Arthur Finch was a former prodigy in the field of animatronic design and special effects. He had grown up in Havenwood, a quiet, eccentric child with an unusual fascination for puppets and grotesque imagery. As a young man, he had left Havenwood to pursue his talents, gaining a reputation in Hollywood for his innovative, often disturbing, creature designs and animatronics, working on cult horror films and amusement park attractions. However, his career had taken a sharp downturn after a disastrous exhibit at a prestigious art gallery in Boston. An ambitious, boundary-pushing series of interactive, unsettling animatronic figures that explored themes of existential dread and societal decay. The exhibit, titled The Unmasking of Man, had been savaged by critics, labeled derivative, sick, and a disturbing display of nihilistic self-indulgence. Dr. Evelyn Reed had been one of his most vocal academic critics, writing a scathing review that questioned his mental stability. Michael Thorne, the artist killed at the mill, had also publicly ridiculed Finch's work, calling it emotionally stunted puppetry. Sarah Jenkins, the barista, had been a childhood friend who, according to old interviews, had drifted apart from Finch after he became too weird. Lily Peterson's family had been regular attendees at the Havenwood Summer Fair, an event Arthur Finch had tried, and failed, to get a booth for his unique animatronic puppets years ago. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Arthur Finch fit the profile perfectly. The technical skill, the theatricality, the resentment, the connection to victims, the Boston link, even the type of paint. His isolated childhood in Havenwood, his artistic rejection, and his subsequent disappearance from the public eye after the Boston debacle, it all painted a picture of a man driven to the edge, meticulously planning his horrifying retribution. Finch had become the embodiment of the very grotesque figures he once created, seeking to unmask the terror beneath the surface of society, one victim at a time, using a clown persona to symbolize the absurdity and cruelty he perceived in the world. A warrant was issued, and a massive manhunt for Arthur Finch began. His last known address was an old, abandoned carnival ground on the outskirts of a forgotten town in rural Massachusetts, a place he had reportedly inherited from an eccentric uncle who had once owned a traveling circus. It was a fitting, chilling location for the Harlequin of Horror's final act, as the tactical unit, led by Agent Sharma and Sheriff Miller, converged on the dilapidated carnival ground. A pervasive, unsettling silence hung in the air, broken only by the crunch of leaves underfoot and the distant caw of a crow. The skeletal remains of a Ferris wheel stood sentinel against the gray sky, and rusting rides created grotesque silhouettes. This was a playground of shattered dreams, a perfect stage for a broken mind. They found him in the main big top tent, a surprisingly well-preserved structure amidst the decay. Inside, it was a terrifying tableau. Life-sized animatronic figures, all designed in Finch's distinct, disturbing style, filled the tent. They twitched and groaned, their painted eyes following the officers as they entered. At the center, on a raised stage, stood Arthur Finch, meticulously applying white face paint to a mirror image of himself. He was dressed in a full clown costume, oversized shoes, a ruffled collar, and a wide, painted smile stretching from ear to ear. His eyes, however, held no mirth, only a deep, unsettling emptiness. He turned slowly as they entered, holding a blood-stained brush. "Welcome," his voice, distorted and echoing through the tent from a hidden speaker system, was the same chilling sound from the anonymous calls. "You're just in time for the grand finale, the greatest show on Earth." Behind him, strapped to an elaborate, grotesque animatronic contraption, was a figure. Not a mannequin. It was a person, alive, trembling with terror. It was Mayor Thompson of Havenwood, the man who had publicly dismissed Finch's Unmasking of Man exhibit as a childish attempt at shock value, and had denied him the summer fair booth. Thompson's mouth was gagged, his eyes wide with a profound, soul-crushing fear. His body was already partially painted with white and red, a grotesque canvas awaiting its final, bloody strokes. "He was going to be my masterpiece," Finch stated, his painted face devoid of emotion. "The ultimate unmasking, the hypocrisy, the judgment, the refusal to see the truth beneath the laughter. I would have shown them all." Agent Sharma stepped forward, her voice calm and steady, cutting through the distorted echo. "Arthur, this isn't art. This is vengeance. This is sickness. You're not unmasking anything. You're just destroying it. You've become the very monster you sought to depict." Finch tilted his head, the painted smile unwavering. "Monster? They made me a monster, Agent. They refused to see my truth, so I had to make them see it through their own fear." He gestured towards the contraption holding Mayor Thompson. "This is truth. This is visceral. This is what you get when you dismiss art. As Finch took a step towards the mayor, raising the bloodied brush, the tactical unit moved. A flashbang exploded, momentarily disorienting the animatronics and Finch. Sheriff Miller, despite his age, lunged forward, tackling Finch to the ground before he could complete his final, horrific stroke. The tent erupted into a cacophony of shouting, struggling, and the eerie, mechanical groans of the animatronics. Arthur Finch, the Harlequin of horror, was finally apprehended. The capture was broadcast live, watched by a terrified and relieved nation. The mayor was rescued, traumatized but alive, his life spared by moments. The abandoned carnival ground, once a stage for dreams, now stood as a silent testament to a nightmare. In the aftermath, the story of Arthur Finch dominated global headlines. Psychologists, now cautious in their pronouncements, delved into his tortured mind, trying to understand the genesis of such profound malevolence. Art critics grappled with the uncomfortable question of whether his horrific, blood-soaked displays were, in some perverse way, a form of art. Havenwood began its slow, painful healing process. The painted smiles on the town's children were replaced with hesitant, real ones. The whispers of fear gradually receded, but the memory of the Harlequin of horror, the grinning monster who had turned their idyllic town into his canvas of terror, would forever be etched into the collective consciousness of America. Arthur Finch's final masterpiece was not in the blood he shed, but in the indelible stain of fear he left behind, a chilling reminder that sometimes, the most profound darkness wears the brightest, most unsettling smile.